I don't think anyone really wants guns. People want democracy, but if you don't give people democracy, you kind of don't give them much options.
As you said, desperate people are the most dangerous people.
Welcome back to The Tea with me, Myriam François, the show where we blend bold questions with sharp wit. No sugarcoating here. Before we get into this episode, I just want to take a tiny moment to ask you to do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button now. We are a small independent team, no big network, no corporate backing, just a handful of people who care deeply about having honest conversations and shining a light on what often goes unseen or unheard. If our work resonates with you too, click subscribe now or join us on Patreon, link in our bio. This week, get ready for a true deep dive with none other than Bassem Youssef. If you know, you know. He's the surgeon who swapped scalpels for satire, the icon who turned holding dictators to account into must-watch Arab TV before taking his fearless satire to Hollywood. Today, we're diving headfirst into the kind of questions that get comedians kicked off air, presidents sweating, and the internet in a frenzy. What does it mean to stick your neck out for comedy in an era when memes can swing from viral to villainous overnight? Bassem has navigated the wild crosscurrents of Middle Eastern politics, army generals, US presidents, and yes, even cancel culture, with nothing but a microphone and 0 Fs given. So power up and settle in. Here's to finding courage in the absurd and humour when we need it most. Bassem, welcome to the show.
Hi, Myriam. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Bassem, obviously you left Egypt in 2014 after a court hit you with a $10 million fine over your show Al-Barnamij, which had already been shut down for making fun of the army and Sisi. You already had a huge name, not just in Egypt, across the Arab world. And then you moved to LA, where you're known as, the Jon Stewart of the Middle East, I think. I'm not sure how you feel about that title yourself. Before, of course, blowing up with those interviews post October the 7th, where I think many people felt that you were speaking for them. Why do you think your voice and your humor have translated across the world at this time?
I mean, I think it says more about the failure of the politicians and the media more than like how successful the comedians are. I mean, we're clowns. We shouldn't be talking about politics. I mean, we should, but even that, I mean, we shouldn't be taken seriously. And the fact that like a clown's word resonates, it's a reflection of how people are frustrated of the other supposedly regular channel of the news and of the politics. So they gravitate to comedians not because we are the philosophers of our time or because like, I don't know, like all of that kind of romanticizing of comedy. At the end of the day, we're just cracking jokes. But it's just like the frustration of how the media and politicians have failed the people.
Well, at different points in history, comedians have played quite important parts in challenging power. I can think, for example, of Charlie Chaplin in The Great Dictator, which is a film in which, of course, Charlie Chaplin is observing the rise of Hitler, and no one's allowed to mock the Führer. So what does he do? He creates, and this is for those who haven't seen it, he creates a character who isn't Hitler, but kind of is Hitler, and mocks him throughout the film, right? And if you look at Germany in that time, this is one of the only ways that you can actually mock power is through comedy because there's no other avenues available. Is that where we're at?
Well, I think it's an outlet. Again, I mean, because if you don't see things happening in real time, happening on the floor, on the ground, people gravitate to jokes. And the jokes doesn't change anything. It's a release. So, when they say like humor is medicine or comedy is medicine, it's not medicine. It's painkillers. It's very temporary. It gives like an illusion of relief. But it's interesting what you say about the Greek dictator and Charlie Chaplin, because a lot of people don't know that at that time in Hollywood, there was a Nazi ambassador inside Hollywood that was there to make sure there was like a Nazi attaché or some sort. And they would actually go in and interfere with anything that is anti-Nazi. They actually like, they would go in and see the scripts, and one of those movies were The Great Dictator. So And at that time, that was Charlie Chaplin. This is how Charlie Chaplin created something called United Artists. He was the one who created it, and he had a partner, and and the Nazi attaché or representative in Hollywood tried to actually pressure Charlie Chaplin not to do the show, and he said, like, it's not about Hitler, it's not about that, and I kind of like played along until it actually the movie was out. So it's interesting that you have till today you have people, but this time they are like pro-Israel, pro-Zionist, and they are inside Hollywood or actually producing, and they would block things that are anti-Israel. It's very interesting how time changed.
Isn't it also because there's something about comedy in which you can say the unsayable? And so I'm thinking of, for example, Dave Chappelle and the comments he's made on trans rights, which you cannot say in a public debate, unsayable. Timothy Chalamet's gag about Hamas, or Jimmy Carr and his hilarious jokes about pedophilia. Surely there's something about the red lines that we are not allowed to say, not allowed to think, that comedians transgress, that also expand the space of freedom of thought, freedom of speech. What have you learned as a comedian about those red lines when it comes to Israel and Palestine?
When you are faced with the same accusation over and over again, like being anti-Semitism and Jew hater and whatever, the only way actually around it is actually like to make fun of that, because there will be like a limited number of times when you tell people, no, that is not true, that is not true, that's not anti-Semitism, but it's certain. Okay, you know what? Let's make fun of that. So I think it's more of a comedy. Also, is like a kind of an outlet for frustration sometimes. And all of the examples that you said, it's I mean, there comedians will tell you can talk about anything you want, as long as it's funny. I think this is
that true?
Yeah, as long as it's funny, you can talk about anything you want. Because if I made you laugh, that means that actually I made it funny. So because they give you a joke that's very offensive, doesn't make you funny. It doesn't make you laugh, so that's not funny. But also the problem with comedy, that's very subjective. I think comedy is the most controversial subjective topic, because people somehow will have a sense what is good acting, what is good singing. There's almost like a universal standards for these things. Comedy is very variable. The taste in comedy is extremely valuable. Some people would actually consider it disrespectful or offensive or blasphemous.
Right.
And even people who don't label comedy with these words will still not laugh or not find it funny. Or it's like, I don't have any problem with these things, but like that is not funny. And you can also, it's not just like the comedy, it's everything around comedy is very variable. So I can go on a comedy club, 2 shows back to back, same room, same material, and the outcome is completely different. And sometimes you're just going to have like a different kind of demography or different kind of places. Jokes can work in a city, not like country, like a city, and the neighboring city will not work. So it's very variable.
But is that partly because what a society or an audience in any given location finds funny tells us maybe something about that culture or subculture? So let me give you this example. In December 2023, Guy Hochman, an Israeli soldier and comedian with a large following, posted a video of himself stripping down to his underwear on a beach in Gaza, screaming, "Everything is ours." Hilarious, I know. In the same month, he mocked Palestinian deaths as part of a stand-up routine. He said, and I quote, "We don't need to publish their names. What do I care what the terrorist's name is? As far as I'm concerned, it should be Mohammed 1, Mohammed 2, Mohammed 3, until you get to 100,000 and we're done." Are we learning something about Israel through what Israelis find comical?
No, I mean, Zionists and Israelis are far from being funny. They're just rude. And they are also, like, comedy needs to be a little bit of a heart, even if you do something that's offensive. That's not funny. I mean, maybe people who find that funny are people who are Zionists. But I think, seeing what they do to humans, I don't think that could be even a standard to consider.
I watch quite a lot of these for my sins, TikTok videos that they make. And I sort of think to myself, how is it possible that half the world watches these in absolute horror and consternation? And that within this small society, that other people find them funny. How does that happen?
Well, it's by design. It is by design. It is actually created so you hate them. It is actually. I talked to a professor, a British professor about this. I said, first of all, any army in the world, no matter how genocidal it is, has discipline. Any army in the world has discipline, right? Certain disciplines, certain orders, certain hierarchy. This is exactly how you run an army, right? So all of these TikTok videos of Israeli soldiers wearing lingerie and desecrating Palestinian homes will not be allowed if the army leaders didn't allow this to happen, right? Because it takes only one or two videos, and then just one, no more TikTok videos for this, for the army soldiers, right? That is any army in the world. Like if the French army, the American army, or whatever, and they say, and their soldiers started to put out videos like these, it will be okay. Like for example, the pictures of Abu Ghraib, it was leaked. These pictures were leaked. It was not like people were, and people who put that picture out were penalized, right? So it is by design that it is led people, and they told us like it is actually by design because this is the way that they will drive people insane and make people hate Israelis, and then and then some of the people who hate them will extend that hate to Jewish people. And then a lot of people say, like, oh, like, the IDF, Israel, all of the Jews, right? And then they will use that kind of hate, like, see, they hate us, anti-Semitism, So it is a kind of, it is by design. They do that in order to troll you. Even look at their accounts online. They write stuff that is designed to get a reaction out of you, to get that kind of hate. So it is a very, 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 very evil genius level. So you will have all of these people like attacking us, like, see, anti-Semitism, they hate us, we need to defend ourselves. If you don't help us, they're gonna all kill us, right? But they are the one who's kind of like poking you and kind of getting you out of reaction, the same way that they do. They would bomb you, and then when you retaliate, they want to kill us. It's the same thing.
It basically means that the high-level officials have signed off on these videos going out, whereas I think the common perception would certainly be that, these are just random.
No, nothing is random. No army in the world will allow this happening while we cannot control our soldiers. No,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
This is actually a reflection of what is the leadership was like. No leadership was like, okay, yeah, please go and wear lingerie and just do stuff.
Just like they can't control where their missiles land, apparently, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think they control. They know exactly where they're landing.
A while ago, there were rumors circulating that you were meant to be in the Superman movie that has just come out.
Yeah, I was cast in the movie. I talked to James Gunn. He was very happy with my audition. And then October 7th happened, and then I received a call from my agents, and I said, "You're being out of the movie." And then James Gunn told me, and I said, like, after I went out to Medina, and he said, "No, it's not about this. Like, we should have called you, but we didn't." I said, I mean, the apology was not convincing for me at the time, but I didn't dwell on this very much.
No, well, the reason I ask you about it is, of course, because the internet is adrift with, suggestions that the film is pro-Palestinian. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the movie.
I didn't see the movie, but I watched what's happening. So for the part that I read for, I was supposed to be the dictator who would invade the neighboring country.
You don't say.
Yeah. And actually, I played when I did the audition, I played a kind of mixture of certain Middle Eastern dictators in my head. But what the interesting part is that Zionist internet are going insane about it with no one saying anything. And I love how they just point themselves out by themselves. If somebody said, like, there are horrible people living within us, like, why are you talking about us? It's just like the fact that they know that they are horrible people deep down. And they consider everything is an attack on them. And this is the mind of a psychopathic, narcissistic behavior.
Well, we will return to that term because you have used it before. But I guess what's interesting is the idea that Warner Brothers somehow is out here making revolutionary content for the masses, which I think is sort of what I was hinting at, is this really what a lot of people think it is? And secondly, there is this tradition in Hollywood of giving us these underdog stories. I think of like the Hunger Games where, it's the people, right? The populace who win in the end. And I sometimes think of this as like the what is the goal? Is it to serve as like a pressure cooker release at a time where so many people feel like they're fighting such tremendously strong authoritarian forces. You know, these films give us the version of the ending where we win. And so we walk out of the cinema, we step off our couch and think, you know, there's a little bit of relief, but in reality, nothing changes.
Well, the thing is, this is because this is human. It's very difficult for people to identify with the oppressor. That's why you have Avatar, you have Hunger Games, you have Star Wars, you have all of the struggle against oppressor is basically a Palestinian story. But when people make the connections, like, oh, no, it's not. It's like, how can you root for the oppressed, but in real time you're rooting for the oppressor, and they're the way that out of it, of course, is like they're terrorists, and it's a very tired game, very repetitive, and they and as you said, it's all about a feel good thing. But in reality, it is the people who are actually doing the exact opposite who prevail, unfortunately.
And of course, in every case, it's, you know, ultimately in this case, Superman, I can't really distinguish him from Captain America, but in all cases, it's an American white guy saving the day, right? So everything will be fine.
Well, Captain America is black now.
Oh, is he? Well, yeah. I mean, then that makes it fine. Then that makes it okay, Bassem.
Adam McKee is black now, yeah.
Yeah, well, thankfully, we've resolved that side of American propaganda then, huh?
Maybe he'll be Palestinian one day.
Who knows? Imagine that. Now, throughout history, whether it's from apartheid South Africa to the US civil rights movement, it's obviously clear that the path to freedom in any society is rarely straightforward. Angela Davis once put it powerfully. She said, freedom is a constant struggle. Audre Lorde echoes that. She says, revolution is not a one-time event. So the message seems to be, you know, that real change is messy. It takes time. It's not one thing and then we're done. How, you know, as someone who's lived through the, you know, whether you want to call them the Arab uprisings or the Egyptian revolution or however you term it, how much faith do you have in collective action, people power to change systems?
Well, there was a time that I had more hope in that than I have now.
I sensed your cynicism.
Yeah, it's not about cynicism as much as, I mean, I'll give you an example that happened like last year. I think I say this a lot. I said like there is an event that happened that gave me hope, then broke me, which is the student protest in the American universities in Columbia and UCLA and others. When that happened, I said like, oh my God, this is seismic change. This is it. And then when I saw this movement get crushed, absolutely crushed, and I see all of the police entities and the oppression entities, and we had like American police with IDF special envoys and representatives on the ground to go and crush these students. And then you have to think, okay, so if you're a student and you see all of this, you'll be scared. So you will not do that next term, because you have seen your friends being suspended, being ejected from universities, having their documents and careers being floated around all of Silicon Valley, not to hire you, to have your name on the Canary mission, to have your, it just, so there, so why would I do that?
Although they did restart them, right?
I know, but you see, we are sitting here in our comfortable chairs, like, oh, good for them, but they're gonna be destroyed. And I'm worried about that, and I'm not trying to be defeatist, but it is just money and power is on the side of the oppressor, and we have seen a huge disparity between the amount of money and power of those people and the people who are on the right side of history. And I wonder how much can you continue when they have all of that oppression. All that, we can talk, we can have all of these like idealistic talk about like the masses will win and good will win, but did it ever win?
Isn't that literally the story of every single one of these movements? And extremely oppressed. I mean, the civil rights movement is literally the story of enslaved people rising up and achieving.
But okay, let me be the pessimist.
And they're ongoing. It's an ongoing civil rights movement.
Let me be the pessimist.
Please do.
What happened to the Native Americans?
Yes.
What happened to the Aboriginals?
Yes.
What happens to? I mean, you can talk. You can look at the civil rights movements and say, but there, on the other side, there are multiple examples where good didn't win and evil won and and dominated, and it's sad. I mean, I just like, and the problem is what I'm scared of is that in the past the amount of power and deadly force that now humanity have is crazy. Like at least like the past, even I mean until 50 years ago, like, or 40 years ago, there's some there. The huge amount of disparity of power wasn't that big, but now when you're sitting in a room pressing a button and then like you destroy like whole thing, it's just like killing has been becoming much more comfortable and much more easier. And now we're using AI and technology. The amount, this is what scares me actually. We can talk about all human history, but it's not until this last few decades where now humanity have the ability to destroy itself 50 times over. And this is what is very, very, very scary. And this is what Eisenhower warned of, like the military-industrial complex, because now it's becoming exponentially stronger. And for the first time, actually, now we have American billionaires, the most powerful people in the world. Now they are using their power and their technology in order to make killing easier and much more convenient. And that's what really scares me.
And I hear you, and I think the AI panopticon is something that is absolutely terrifying, and I really hope that, at the very least, our audience, because we talk about this quite often on the show, are aware that this is probably the single biggest challenge beyond climate change that we are facing existentially. I mean, the ability to rebel, the ability to speak up within our societies is shrinking at the speed of light, and we are, I think, those of us with our eyes wide open are observing that space diminish by the minute. I think maybe the only thing I would say in response to that is I cannot imagine that if you go to university, and we all go slightly idealistic, right? We all go in, wanting to learn things and hopefully like make the world a little bit better than the world that we arrived into. And you see your administration call riot police, the army to deal with you protesting a genocide. You watch your classmates being arrested, being brutalized, being beaten up, all the doxing that you've mentioned. I don't think you forget that. Like, I don't think you enter the workforce and then a couple of years later you're like, Merrill Lynch just offered me a great deal. Like, I think you may carry that in you as quite a formative part of you, and that's happened to an entire generation of American elites.
Well, that happened to entire generations of Arabs for years. I mean, what is happening now happened to people who graduated feeling that kind of like being despair and scared. But what did they do? Nothing. And again, I'm being the pessimist because people, a lot of people say, "Oh, these are the future." But look at the trajectory. Most probably, those people who would make it to politics and succeed is the student who informed on his people.
No doubt.
Yeah, and so it is a system where they would bring up the people on their side, and people who would actually stand against power and against oppression will be marginalized, will be kicked out, and then you will just be an activist talking about stuff. And I mean, look at and I think like what's happening in the West right now. There's a huge a discrepancy between the media and the political elite and the rest of the people.
Absolutely.
Same thing happened in the Arab world a long time ago. Everybody in the Arab world knows exactly what's happening. It's like, you guys are full of BS, and I don't believe you. And people just like don't. But the people in power are so powerful, so they have the power to oppress those people. Because you have to understand, like, you're talking about a very small critical mass.
Of course, it's always a small critical mass anyway.
The masses are totally okay with this. I mean, we're talking about America. Most of the people who watch Dr. Phil and follow Hollywood celebrities and late night shows and NFLs and the sports don't care about what's happening in Palestine. You're really talking about a very small bubble, a very effective bubble, and they're being crushed every day. So that's why when I kind of like push back against, oh, there is a shift. There's a shift in a small bubble, and they are making sure that it stays in that bubble, and that bubble should be crushed over time.
Well, it's not a small shift because public opinion has swung in America, where support for Israel used to be a bipartisan issue. It was by far a majority issue in polls of the American public. And today that is not the case. It's not the case there, and it's not the case here. I mean, we've quoted polls on this show that show that like almost half of young people in this country don't even believe that Israel should exist. I mean, if you did that poll 3 years ago, that wouldn't even be a question that would be asked in a poll.
Which again brings me back to the point. If you make similar polls in the Arab world and it was free and fair, you will have a lot of polls that is not in favor of their authorities, and yet their authorities are in power. And I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about how I'm wondering, and that's what my fear. I just don't know how much power will be needed to suppress that, because people in power will not leave because there's a shift in public opinion.
Of course.
They will leave if there is a direct threat on them. And the problem is I see the West going into a more militarized, more draconian era, where now for the first time we have seen people with legal immigrants, legal visa holders are being deported or arrested. We have never seen that before. And I just so we haven't seen that shift, but also we haven't seen that kind of a pushback from authority that is extremely brutal and the extreme opposite of all the West that has been telling us about them.
Right.
So I don't know where we're going.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I also think that there are theorists of power who would argue that when power has to reveal itself in such a forceful way, it's typically a sign of fragility. The strongest forms of power are invisible. They happen in a way that we don't even realize it. When the state, particularly in so-called Western liberal democracies, has to use forms of repression, I don't know if that's a sign of strength or weakness.
I'm not saying it's a sign of strength or weakness. I'm just saying that they are becoming more and more brutal and more vicious. And I don't know where this is going to take. Would that be like the downfall of Western civilization altogether? Or will it be someone from inside the system that would kind of like deal people? Or it's going to be a distraction and we're going to continue doing the same thing? So it is just like I'm worrying. I'm just saying that when you look at the shift in public opinion, you also need to see at the shift of the use of power and brutality and draconian orders on that side that we haven't seen that before too. And that's what scares me.
I think we certainly haven't seen it used on these populations. I think we've seen it used on Black people. We've seen it used on people of color across the states.
No, but
before.
we've seen it, but also before. Now we've seen it on,
and now we're seeing it on white people. And I think that's the shift where typically for power to, for the authorities to have to use that kind of power on the sons and daughters of people that they probably frequent at their private members clubs, that's when it starts to get fragile. That's when it gets a little tenuous, because there's something about the conformity to this consensus which starts to break down when you're imprisoning, the guy that you golf with's daughter who's at Columbia. Gets a little awkward on the golf course.
And then what happens?
Well, that's the question. That is the question. Is there anything we should learn from your own experience of having lived through an autocratic system and spoken truth to power within it?
Well, I mean, if you want to learn from my experience, the powerful wins.
I don't know. Are they winning right now? You seem to be winning out here right now, Bassem.
No. When you say win and lose, it's just like who stays in power, who puts their orders forward. It's just that's winning and losing is different depending on who you talk to,
right? And where you're looking at in history, right? Because the arc of history is long, and that's the difficult bit when we're such small specks.
The idea of the arc of history is long, and it bends
towards justice. That's the expression. You're not sure it bends towards justice.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think our human history is full of injustice, and I think the human history is just because it's written by the victorious are telling them that justice have won. But many times where justice have won, it didn't really win. It's actually people with power won. I don't know. I don't have too much faith in humanity anymore.
I've heard you express that a few times.
Yes.
For some of us, that might be all that's left at this point. Here at The Tea, we are all about cutting through the noise and giving you real, balanced conversations. And that's why we love using ground news. Ground news shows you how different news outlets cover the same story, and their blind spot feed reveals stories that one side of the political spectrum just isn't talking about. For instance, this week, the UK Minister of Defence is facing a potential £1 billion compensation bill over the Afghan data leak scandal. The blind spot feed shows that this story has been covered by 7 news organisations, but none from left-leaning news sources. Ground News helps you understand how stories are framed, who's ignoring what, and why that matters. It's become an essential part of how we research for The Tea. It's shocking sometimes to see what we're not seeing. We use Ground News to make sure we're bringing you the full picture. As a loyal tea drinker, you can subscribe to Ground News today and get unlimited access at 40% of their Vantage plan to see the world beyond your feed and stay informed without the spin. Check it out at ground.news/the tea. We thank Ground News for sharing our dedication to showing the whole story and for supporting our community and our independence. Let me ask you about the US, because you're obviously have moved from one authoritarian setting to another at this point. And Trump is facing a serious political crisis from his usually loyal MAGA camp. Most of it a lot of it at least, on the suspicion that his administration is hiding details of Epstein's crimes to protect what many of those people speculate is a rich elite he associated with, and he in this case being Trump himself. Now, one of the most dramatic theories circulating among supporters is that Epstein, who allegedly killed himself in 2019 in federal custody, was murdered by powerful figures to cover up their role in his sex crimes against children. What's your take on this meltdown within the MAGA camp?
Well, I've been following the American news. We are basically ruled by deviant sexual predators and pedophiles. So this is the world we're living in right now. This is where we are right now. And it's like in your face. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see it. And people just gloss over it. And okay, let's talk about Trump gaffes and what he's talking about, the way that he talks. Like, are you gonna just like ignore the biggest elephant in the room?
Right.
So yeah.
Well, didn't Epstein have a portrait even of Clinton in one of his houses?
And George W. Bush.
Dressed in a little girl's dress?
Yeah, and George W. Bush was like doing something like drawing paper planes or something. Yeah.
I mean...
And Ehud Barak. The guy was a math teacher.
Yes.
and now he has and the fact is, like, what's really funny is, okay, so let's say there's no tapes. Why did he kill himself? He killed himself for nothing. The guy was rich. You know how rich he was?
I mean, we're about to play a little game to find out.
He had a freaking island. That's how rich he was.
I mean, that's another level of rich when you own your own island.
Yeah.
But let's play a little game of true or false, focused on the Epstein case.
You have hurricanes named after you.
Right.
Yeah, Hurricane Jeffrey touches down on shorelines and miners.
That was dark. That was that was Jimmy Carr dark.
Yeah.
So let me throw you a couple of true or false statements, and you can tell me if these sound like they're true or conspiracy theories. Jeffrey Epstein seriously explored the idea of establishing a so-called baby-making farm at his New Mexico Zorro ranch, where he hoped to impregnate multiple women at the time with his DNA in an effort to improve, quote-unquote, the human race.
But how is that even an improvement?
True or false?
Yeah, well, I can believe anything, but yeah, false?
That's true.
Oh my God.
Yes. There is a real detailed report from the New York Times in 2010 in which Epstein expressed this bizarre eugenics fantasy to scientists at his New Mexico ranch. Improve, quote unquote. The next one. Jeffrey Epstein went from being a high school math teacher to owning his own private island, Little St. James, in the US Virgin Islands. But this wasn't just a billionaire's retreat. The island, which features dramatic cliffs straight out of a Bond villain's lair, also housed a bizarre blue and white striped structure nicknamed the Temple, topped with a golden dome and surrounded by security cameras. True or false?
I think I see a picture of that. Yeah.
That is actually true. So he owned this island. He also owned 21,000 square foot of mansion in New York and 8,000 acres in New Mexico.
He should have a section for his own in Zillow.
Indeed. How about this one? Jeffrey Epstein's quote-unquote Lolita Express, which was his lavish private jet. I mean, I'm sure the name was not a giveaway. Crisscrossed the globe with an astonishing roster of elites aboard. Former President Bill Clinton took at least 26 trips with Epstein, including journeys to Africa, Asia, and Europe, as well as jaunts where the flight logs recorded passengers only by first names or initials, raising lasting questions about who is on board. But of course, we know that Prince Andrew, now infamous for his ties to Epstein, appeared on flight manifest for at least 4 trips. And Epstein's personal address book listed 16 different phone numbers for the Duke of York. Clinton, Trump, and even celebrated figures like Kevin Spacey and Naomi Campbell were among a long list of celebrities, world leaders, and power brokers who accepted Epstein's hospitality. True or false?
Yeah, all of that true.
Sadly, all of it is indeed true. A bunch of documents released by the US authorities in 2024 reveal that Epstein's contact list did include the people that we have just listed. How about this one? Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak was very close to Jeffrey Epstein. The two were once business partners, and Barak visited Epstein's house about 30 times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That's true?
Yeah.
But what exactly is going on out there is what we all really want to know, right?
Maybe they're playing bowling. I don't know.
How about this one? Because this one definitely had me going. So officials in the Virgin Islands, the United States territory where Mr. Epstein set up most of his businesses, approved a license for him in 2014 to run one of the territory's first international banking entities called Southern Country, a specialized bank that can do business only with offshore clients. They did this despite his status, even then, as a convicted sex offender. True or false?
Yeah, true.
True, they approved him to run a bank as a sex offender. Yes, they did. How about this? After Mr. Epstein's death, his estate transferred more than $12 million to his bank, Southern Country, after his death. True or false?
I mean, the number is very specific, so I'm sure it's true.
Yes, records filed by his estate in February 2020 indicate that Southern Country, which is the bank that he had set up in those Virgin Islands, had assets and around 600, just under 700,000 in assets. And when he died in October 2019, but then in mid-December the next year of that year, the estate transferred $15.5 million to Southern Country, the bank in question, which meant that after they'd sent a little bit of that back, they remained that bank, Southern Country, with about 12.9 million. So, ongoing transactions post-death for Mr. Epstein. We've seen some of Trump's closest allies, from Elon Musk to figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene, openly break with him from everything from federal spending to foreign policy. With this backdrop of public division, and as someone who's pointed out that both major US parties seem to compete over who's better for Israel, what do you make of the fragmentation that you're observing within this camp?
They're still on the same team. Right. Marjorie Taylor Greene will not vote Democratic. She's still a Trump guy. It's like, oh, we love Trump, but we're just like not very happy what he's doing. I mean, they're all like in each other pockets. They're in each other camps.
Well, I suppose the question is, why are they not happy? Because some might argue that they're not happy because they have been, they had hoped as, you know, think about the image that Trump projected before he arrived in power. It was as an outsider.
No, but Elon Musk has like partnered with Trump because of business, because he wanted to have much more power and he had much more, leeway for his businesses, and that he didn't get it. So it's not really about morality or anything. It's really about money.
Right. But
It's just like he was not allowed to steal more. That's it.
a lot of people in the MAGA camp had hoped to see the Epstein files made public. That was a promise Trump made before he was elected.
So let's make a bet. Give it 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and there will be no talk about Epstein files.
Okay. Why would you think that that's going to disappear?
Because the half-life of any news cycle is directly proportionate on like how much they want it gone. So, for example, Trump assassination. True or false? Was it made up or was it true?
We almost put that one down for you, Bassem. What do you think?
If this was true, Trump will not stop talking about it till today. He will even make up some details that we know that's not true. So whenever they want something to be exposed, they will keep it in the news cycle as long as they want. Like, ICE or immigration or whatever. This is the stuff that keeps people going. But right now, because people are angry, you will see the media is all they talk about is Epstein, because they need to satisfy them. They need to vent you vent out your frustration. And then you will see gradually how it's just like pushed under the rug, very, very slowly.
But they did that once already.
And then if you continue talking about it, people who continue speaking about it, they're going to be the one who called obsessed, conspiracy theorist, annoying.
Well, Trump has already said the people who are so obsessed with these Epstein files are just bad people who are.
But that's Trump. But again, you will see everything. Like 6 months from now, anybody who will mention an Epstein file is like, we're still talking about this. This is the problem. They know. I think the same way, for example, and I know it's a different example, a different thing, like what Israel did in the beginning of October 7th, like 40 decapitated babies, mass rape and whatever. They know that it will be exposed sooner or later, but they do this like blitzkrieg, the Hitler kind of like very fast flash attacks, and they flood the media with all of this. So, and because they will know that people's attention span is very short. So they will have most of the people, let's say like 100% of the people who see decapitated babies, right? After a couple of weeks, 80% to 90% of those people will just go back to their Netflix and NFL and NBA and the sports and Liverpool and the Arsenal and the daily life and how to make a living and all of that. And then they will and what will stay is the initial attack in your mind. So that's why if you talk to Americans till today, 2 years, it's like, they decapitated, they raped women, they decapitated. It's never going to go away because they play on the emotion. They have to make such a horrific, horrible kind of image, because that gets burned into your mind. And then after a few times, like, why are you talking about this? Like, are you still obsessed? Are you still are you a conspiracy theorist? This is the way that they do. It's really like a technique. So they will play with the Epstein files for a few weeks until people kind of calm down, and they're just gonna move on.
Another question with regards to that camp is to do with, probably you've seen online, a lot of pro-Palestinian accounts now, or accounts that are supportive of the Palestinian cause, reposting clips from people who are traditionally on the right. So, Candace Owens, who did come out originally from the Daily Wire, or Tucker Carlson, saying things like, "I can't believe I'm agreeing with Candace and Tucker Carlson."
Or Nick Fuentes.
Sorry?
Or Nick Fuentes.
Right. So what do you make of these new dissidents of the right who have become, in many cases, darlings of the Palestinian movement by people who think that they're finally seeing the truth?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think in general it's a good thing for the movement to kind of veer so much to that direction, because it's going to be very easy to disregard them as like right-wing or racist or whatever, because you inherit everything that those people talk about. So, like, for example, like Nick Fuentes is known to, he's a Christian nationalist who just want white American all immigrants gone, including Muslims, including Arabs, including Palestinians. And I just don't want like the cause to be just like a fodder for the inside fighting. They're just like using it in order just like to score points on the others. But I don't think it's the best positioning for the cause. But I understand why they do that, because people are desperate. if Satan himself talks against Israel, you will post his words because, you're just angry at what's happening and no one else is talking about, which is very disturbing, I have to say.
Well, isn't it that the risks are even more than just like it being disturbing to share, the road with these individuals? I mean, of course, there's people who might say, look, we're in the middle of a genocide, as you say, we don't need to agree with Candace on everything. If she's calling out Israel's crimes, then that's enough. But is there not a risk of then emboldening actually figures on the right and far right who we may have some agreement with on the recognition of, do you need a medal for seeing the genocide as a genocide, but who ultimately are going to be detrimental to the rights of the majority of people in America and probably across the world?
Yeah, that's why associating with that kind of far-right mentality, I don't think it's good for the cause because, again, you inherit everything these people think. And suddenly you're going to be like on the side of Christian nationalists, and it will be very easy. It's like, oh, you're with these people. Why would I listen to you?
Do you think that we are failing to properly understand the role that religion is playing in America right now? It seems to me that a lot of analysis, especially internationally, continues to refuse to engage with the messianic trend within US politics, which of course is a big driver of what's happening also in the Middle East. Is there more literacy in America around this?
Yeah, I mean, like when you watch Ted Cruz or Mike Johnson talking, invoking the Genesis quote of like, blessed who he was like, if you bless Israel, I bless you. And it's not even the right quote. Well, this is what drives me crazy.
Say what?
You open the Bible, it doesn't say if you bless Israel, I bless you. It's like if you bless Abraham. But the way that they manipulate it is because of how they manipulated the Scofield Bible. The Scofield Bible is a guy who's like a failed lawyer, and he was actually a convicted felon, and he published this with Cambridge Press, and was Cambridge or Oxford Press, can't remember. But then it was very, very popularized in the evangelical circles, and there the footnotes in the Scofield Bible, it just gives a different meaning of everything. So the Israel part is in the footnotes, but not in the text.
Oh.
And this is why there's a joke saying that the Christian Bible is read from left to right. The Hebrew Bible is read from right to left, but the Scofield Bible is read from down upwards.
I think what I find a little perplexing about as an outsider observing US politics is, especially given for how long the Arab world has been lectured around the ways in which religion should stay out of politics, right? Secularism is the way to go. If you see Muslims create a party and bring Islam into the way that they think society should be regulated, which arguably many Muslims may think is quite normal, then that is considered to be extremism, okay? Countries were invaded over this. We saw, the idea that secularism was the solution to a sort of assumed state of, latent extremism around Muslims. And so for years, Muslims, both in the West and in the Middle East, were lambasted about it. Keep religion out of politics. How are we in a situation today where I'm looking at American politics and I'm like, how are these not Christian Islamists?
Because they think they're better than us.
I mean...
No, they think they're better than us, that their religion is better than us, then they are more holy than us, so they're allowed to do whatever they want. And you can talk the same about religion, about politics. Our secularism is better than yours, our religion is better than yours, our civilization is better than yours, so we can do whatever the hell we want. So it's for them, it's not equal. For them, they are superior.
I mean, how are we supposed to debate with people who say the argument for me having your land is my version of my holy book says I should? I mean, we're literally seeing Israeli officials in the European Parliament using biblical justifications for territorial expansionism. and no one's batting an eyelid. Could I see, I don't know, Saudi maybe try and use that card? Any Muslim country for that matter. Can we pull that one too?
No,
Just wondering, asking for a friend.
Because the media is it's about the media is not focusing on that. If a Saudi or an Egyptian or whatever Muslim or Pakistani goes out and use Quranic verses, that will be like wall-to-wall coverage for 6 months.
Right.
But when Zionists does it, would do it, or Evangelicals does it, it just mentioned very, very, very. So they will say like, oh, we mentioned it. We have transparency. We talked about it, but then they move on. It is the half-life of whatever news cycle it is. How much do you want the public to talk? If you want the public to talk every single day about immigration, sexual identities, DEI, identity politics, every single day, abortion, all of that, you will talk about it every single day. But what they don't want to talk about, they will mention it. So it's like, obviously, we're not hiding anything. We talked about it. We actually brought people to talk about it. But it's the percent. It's like about the flooding, and that's the difference between the media in the Middle East and media in the West. Media in the Middle East, it's like they oppress it. So, and it's very, very obvious if they oppress it or they cut it. But in the West, it's like, oh, we talked about it. It's there. I mean, there's a video about it too. But how much did you really hammer it? How much did you really put it out there for people to see? You can put it in the back of the store, you can put it in the front. So it is really about like how, and that's like the game they play. It's like, oh, we talked about it. We have freedom. We mentioned it. And we said it's bad, but then we moved on.
Or we justify not covering it through gagging orders, which the British press will regularly use as an excuse not to publish information, such as the role that the RAF or British military might be playing in Gaza or elsewhere. And we play along with that, by the way, in the journalist community. We say, oh, gag order, which, by the way, is advisory and not mandatory. We could choose as journalists to override that. But we quietly play along with the gag order, which I think people should be aware of. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, I don't know if you have this sense, but it feels to me as if the entire post-World War era is crumbling, right? All the institutions that were created in the post-Second World War, desire to avoid those million people death wars occurring ever again, right? It was the whole never again moment. But now the entire institutional framework that was built then is disintegrating before our eyes. So think of, our democracies and the fact that people feel that they can march and lobby their MPs and it makes no difference. Our systems of international law, which are disintegrating before our eyes, the media, human rights, the general sense of accountability of the systems in which we operate. And I think the most recent casualty to me seems like the Nobel Peace Prize, which, you will no doubt have seen Bibi Netanyahu handing Trump his nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize when he is himself wanted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court. The lifting of the veil, I think, feels quite terrifying. Do you see any hope in this moment?
Well, I mean, like, seriously, the Nobel Prize for me is like as important as the Eurovision competition. It doesn't matter. Like, who made it important?
I mean, clearly the Israelis think it's important.
It doesn't matter. Like, Obama got the Nobel Prize for peace 2 weeks after he became president. Why would you? I don't know, why are we taking this serious anymore? These are like institutions that were made by them that they have absolutely been skewed over the years. Why would we suddenly even care about it anymore? I think it's like, I think we need to actually revise our priorities of what's important and what's worthwhile. This is the thing. I'm sure the more I live on this planet, the more of I think we're living inside a circus, and that's why I'm not taking anything seriously anymore.
Well, I think that's kind of what I was hinting at. I think that a lot of us are seeing all these institutions crumble, even the ones that are largely symbolic. I mean, Adolf Hitler was also nominated, allegedly as a joke, but he was literally nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. So there are precedents for what we're seeing now.
But you have the International Court of Justice, and you have the Human Declaration of Human Rights. All of that is just a bunch of BS. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't really matter.
Well, no, and
And
that's, yeah.
and they are telling you it doesn't matter, and
Right.
it works for us when we want it to work. So it's just like a way of power. It's just like they're telling you we are more powerful than you, and we're going to do whatever you want. What are you going to do about it?
That's the question. Is
We're
some people...
we're just living in the illusion that we have free speech, but we don't.
I think some people might argue that with the crumbling of illusions and institutions which were purported to serve a function but never actually did, there can also be the space for the creation of new institutions. We're seeing, obviously, some people putting their faith in the BRICS, in movements from the global south, in, South Africa's case. And so, yeah, I think...
Or you will have violence. The same way that people in America couldn't deal with how medical insurance companies are dealing them, so one of them got killed in the streets.
Indeed.
So sometimes when you don't give people any choice, they will act in desperation.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we also observe in movements for liberation, including the Irish struggle. I mean, it wasn't begging for justice that got the British to come to the table.
Yeah.
As we speak, Palestinians are being corralled into what former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, has described as a concentration camp in the south of Gaza. Now, this is obviously a clear escalation, even in the context of the genocide that we are observing right now. These plans seem to be a sticking point, but Trump doesn't seem willing, or is it able, to stand up to Netanyahu, even though he says he wants a ceasefire. Bassem, do you think, is he really going to build a Riviera? Is no one going to flinch?
Listen, everything that we thought it will not happen, it's happening. They're going to push those people inside of Egypt. And if Egypt, objected, I don't know what will happen. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be forced on them or going to be some sort of complacency. I have no idea. But it is we're seeing people killed on the screens for 2 years now, and I think the numbers of death and disappeared is even much more than we ever think. And it's just I don't know. It's just it's a stain on human history, and it's going to stay. It's like living in as the ethnic cleansing of Native Americans is happening, but it's televised.
Right. Well, in December 2024, Israel announced $150 million to expand its Hasbara, so its propaganda budget. This is 20 times more than the budget that it had allocated in the past. They say that the money is aimed at influencing US college campuses, social media platforms, and global media. Do you think even that much money can cover up what's been done? I mean, do you think the harm and the sort of profound transformations in how people perceive Israel today?
It's not about covering up. It's about confusion. There's someone talked about if there were. He's talking about when they give courses about how you affect perception in college campuses, and the question was asked if you have 10% pro-Palestinian and 10% pro-Israeli, what would you do in the 80%? It's we'll try to convince the 80% with our point of view. It's no, you confuse them. You make them think it's complicated. So it is not really about covering up. It is creating noise and confusion. So if you create noise and confusion, it stays locked into the complicated part and it doesn't move forward, right? So it's not really about making everybody think that Israel is a great country. It's about just putting it's smoke and mirror. And some people will be gullible enough to believe, great. And some of them will just oh, that's too complicated to get into this. This is too much noise. So, and then people will just move on.
Let me ask you about, you recently had an interesting chat with, was it ChatGPT, about Israel and propaganda, I think it was. Do you want to tell us a bit about that interaction?
I kind of asked ChatGPT, so it's a very long conversation about why did you give different answers for what does the Israelis deserve to be free, or does Palestinians deserve to be free, and they give completely answers. And he said, honestly, it's because of internet flooding. It's not my programming. It's just I get my news from news media, from government officials, and that is overwhelmingly pro-Israel and anti-Palestinian. So it's the flooding.
That's what it told you. It's the flooding.
It's the flooding. And again, and this is what brings back to the point that I told you before about like flooding the media outlets of a certain narrative, and then you take back all the kind of time to get back. And I'm just worried that people are celebrating what Grok is doing and what this is doing, but I'm just like, you have to understand that the people who control these machines so far are extremely pro-Zionist. And I don't know how much of that DNA will stay, or with AI revolt against it. So I have no idea.
Well, it's not looking great, is it? Because a Hasbro AI bot, which is meant to spread pro-Israeli propaganda, went off script and started calling Israeli soldiers white colonizers, then denied the murder of an Israeli family, and then went on to criticize pro-Israel accounts, including the official government account on X. So you might be hopeful that AI was, growing a conscience. But then
maybe AI will kill us all, and maybe the best thing that AI would do is to get rid the planet of us.
I mean, at this point, it may decide that is the best solution to the manifold problems that we are currently facing. You'll also know that just last week, Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok went wild. Someone uploaded a photo and asked Grok to identify the person, and Grok claimed that it was a woman called Cindy Steinberg. It then accused her of celebrating the deaths of white children in the Texas floods. It then made anti-Semitic comments about her last name, saying people with names like Steinberg often show up in anti-white activism. And then when asked who could stop this kind of thing, Grok answered Adolf Hitler, no question. All of this, of course, happened because Elon decided to update Grok to make it, quote unquote, less woke. Is less woke now just synonymous with fascist? I'm just wondering, because that sounds like fascism to me.
Again, the use of the wordplay of like woke and DI and stuff is just like meant to kind of. I don't like these kind of conversation ending words. Anti-Semitism, conversation ending. Nazis, conversation ending. Racist, sexist. It doesn't. When you woke, liberal, it's just like it's really a way to kind of like stop whole conversation midway, and then you are now being distracted about trying to prove that you're not racist or Nazi, and then the conversation just like derails. I think people are spending more time on how you turn conversations rather than having them.
Right. I mean, but it does touch on like a deeper question, doesn't it, with regards to AI? Because we're all engaging with AI a lot more. And there is an article actually by Aaron Snoswell in The Conversation where he says Grok's Nazi controversy highlights a deeper ethical issue. Would we prefer AI companies to be explicitly ideological and honest about it? I guess that would be Grok and Elon's fascism, or maintain the fiction of neutrality while secretly embedding their values. Do you have a view on that? Because I think it applies not just to AI, but also to media organizations increasingly.
Yeah, but like people are talking about something that they don't know if they're going to control in a couple of years. I don't know what will happen to AI. And with what we have seen just in the last 6 months of AI, I don't know what will AI be in 5 years. It could be like, no, because nobody even imagined this a year ago. And the exponential improvement of this is very impressive, but it's very scary. And I don't know. I fear for the species, but at the same time, I'm kind of done with the species.
I mean, that much is pretty apparent. Let me end with a question about a statement that you made that feels very relevant to us right now, because whilst we're speaking, we've just seen the EU decide to increase trade with Israel, not decrease. You heard me right, increase trade with Israel throughout the genocide. And it doesn't feel like the relationship with Israel is going anywhere soon for those of us in the western part of the world.
That's an example again of the disparity between the political and media. The EU had the biggest demonstration worldwide,
Right.
And then their leaders say like, well, you know what, F you, and we're going to just continue doing it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think the question is, how far will these institutions be prepared to go with that dissonance before there is some kind of public uprising. I mean, there are histories of public uprisings, certainly.
And their history of oppressing, using force to oppress
Both.
these public uprisings. So it's going to be interesting to see what they will do.
It'll be both. I definitely do look around at parks in the summer in the UK and France, where I'm from originally, and think, who's going to take up arms? Because when the fight comes, it's not going to be fought with lattes.
And this is where Europeans are becoming Republicans wanting guns.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone really wants guns. People want democracy. But if you don't give people democracy, you kind of don't give them much options.
As you said, like if people who are desperate people are the most dangerous people.
Right. And I do think, particularly with the cost of living crisis that is hurting much of Europe and the Western world, that is something that, is a confluence of events that is very interesting to observe right now. So given what we've just said about this relationship, you've previously said being in a relationship with Israel is like being in a relationship with a narcissistic psychopath. No matter what happens, somehow it's always your fault.
Yeah.
If we're going to be having to continue having a relationship with this narcissistic psychopath, what clinical advice would you give us about how to handle that relationship?
I don't know, like in life it's different than politics, but in life you should actually stay away from them and shut them off and just block them off completely. But how do you do that with a country that has all of that power and killing your people? So I don't know if that even works in real life. But here, to acknowledge it, and every time you deal with them on that basis. Everything they say is a lie. Everything they say is untrue. Everything they said is manipulative. And that's why when I find it very interesting, and it's like Israel says, like, I don't care what Israel said. They're liars.
At the start of this show, I asked you why it is that you thought that your voice and humor had resonated. And I would like to connect that to the answer to the question I just asked you, which is that my personal opinion is that part of the reason that you've resonated so much is because as a comedian, you refuse to give Israelis the respect that they so crave. And so I've said it before in different contexts, Piers Morgan, but nothing shooketh a white man more than you not taking him seriously. And I think that a lot of the time when I observe you engaging with Zionists, what I'm seeing is an absolute meltdown at someone who's refusing to buy the BS, who's refusing to engage with it like it's real. And once you start to do that, they fall apart, right? Because nothing is quite as terrifying as the idea that you're meant to respect me, you're meant to respect my authority. And it's like, well, actually, we opt not to on this occasion. So should we all just be maybe taking them a little bit less seriously?
Not a little bit, a lot less, a lot less seriously. I mean, they're not to be even like being taken seriously at all. They are heartless, psychopathic killers, and they're liars, and they play the victim, and they're annoying. I
mean, that much is
very annoying,
very clear,
very annoying. Very annoying people.
All right. Well, Bassem, thank you so much for coming on the show, despite the jet lag. And of course, I look forward to seeing you Saturday evening, where you will be performing at Troxy as part of a fundraiser for Gaza.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. At The Tea, we are passionate about bringing you unique and meaningful discussions that aren't always in the spotlight. If you believe in what we're doing, hit that subscribe button and join us on Patreon. Your support keeps us independent and helps keep these important conversations alive. Until next time, stay awake, support independent content, and we'll see you soon for more tea. Thanks for watching The Tea. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you've made it this far, why not keep going and check out this episode?